welcome to the OptimumYou show. Um, Today I want to talk about belief. Okay, now in the movie The Matrix, if you remember The Matrix, there was a scene where Keanu Reeves' character Neo, he goes to see the lady they call the Oracle, and what she does is she's supposed to be able to tell the future, tell Neo that he's the chosen one, all this stuff. But in one of the scenes, while he's talking to her, she's this unassuming older lady baking cookies in her kitchen, and he's talking to her, and she tells him things, and then she says, "Oh, and don't worry about the vase." And he reacts, "What?" And his reaction to her comment was a movement which caused him to bump a vase of flowers and knock them over and break it. And then her response right after that is, "What's really going to bake your noodle is if you would have broken them if I hadn't said anything." And so that kind of brings me into the power of belief and cause and effect. And one of the things that we deal with on a regular basis in life is creating expectations for ourselves, ergo what we believe will happen, and having those thinking those beliefs are based on reality and the past and track records, and therefore because there's a track record and we believe the track record, that the thing that we believe is that and set expectations for is going to happen. And there are some people that argue that the belief, that expectation that we create about that belief is based on the past, ultimately causes the continuation of the behaviors and outcomes that the expectations or beliefs are based on. So what does that mean? The idea that we've all heard of the self-fulfilling prophecy. The person that has a bad attitude about something ultimately causes the negative outcomes that they are supposedly not wanting, because they have a crappy attitude going into a situation, and the crappy attitude causes the negative outcomes, and the negative outcomes reinforce the expectation that negative outcomes are going to happen. And so it's easy to see in retrospect, and it's easier to see in others than it is to see in ourselves. And so one of the ladies that I like to follow, her, Lisa Nichols, she's a well-known speaker, and the contributor to the book and movie, documentary, whatever it is, called The Secret, talking about the law of attraction, right? Which a lot of people go, woo woo, well, that's a woo woo thing, law of attraction. But that's not the point. The point is understanding who she is she has a story that she tells of when she was younger. I think she was 15 or so, and she was in middle school, high school time frame of her life. She was on a swim team, and she was the worst swimmer on the swim team. She always came in dead last. She was always losing and always fearing losing. And one point in her journey, she went to her grandmother and told her grandmother that she was going to quit swimming, and her grandmother told her that winners never quit and quitters never win, and then promised to come to her next swim meet or whatever it was. And so she goes to her next swim meet. She's late, and was, "Oh darn, I'm not going to be able to swim." And her coach said, "Oh, she can," got her into where she could swim with the older girls, the varsity girls. And so she was going to be competing against girls that were at a much higher level than she was, and she was already coming in dead last against her peers in capability, and so she was freaked out, but she did it. And so her grandmother was there and brought a bunch of her family members, and so she had a cheering squad, and she gets up on that starting block, and pistol goes off. She dives in, and her whole entire mindset for that race was focusing on what her grandmother said, and she tells the story. She swam. Winners never quit. Quitters never win. 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 And she's just chanting that to herself over and over and over. Every stroke of her thing. She does her flip turn. She comes back. Winners never quit. Quitters never win. Winners never quit. Quitters never win. And gets there and boom, hits the wall. And she finishes. She takes her goggles off. She looks around and like nobody's there. And she's like, oh my gosh, I went so slow that everybody finished and is already out of the pool, and I'm what an embarrassment and horrible thing. And finally she after she looks left, looks right, doesn't see anybody. She looks up and her coach is like freaking out. Oh my gosh! And she's like, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Did I do something bad? And she's like, turn around. And she looks back behind her, and her competitors are just hitting. They're just hitting the wall on the other side of the pool and turning around. She's like, oh my gosh, was I supposed to go twice? Was I supposed to do another lap? Did I come up short? And she's like, no, you're done. You won. And she ultimately won, and she set a record for that swim, that distance and that stroke, for her school. And her coach was just saying, what did you do? What did you do? And she's like, I don't, all I did was I swim like I normally do. And except one thing, I did say something to myself while I was swimming. It's like, what did you say to yourself? So I said, winners never quit and quitters never win, and winners never quit and quitters never win. And her coach looks at her and is like, what did you say before? And she thinks about it, and she's like, all I said before was, don't lose, don't lose, don't lose, don't lose. And so she ultimately, literally the only thing different between her normal swimming and that moment where she broke a record and she won and she beat people that were at a much higher level than her was simply the self-talk, the belief, the expectation that she created in her own mind, her subconscious, that was, winner versus dead last. And it's an amazing story about the power of what we can do when we are available to possibility. And this is the whole industry of sports psychology and performance coaches and things like, when players go into a slump, it's 99% of the time because of a mental block. So they're going in having a person coach them on how to think so that they can change the way they perform. It's not about the skill. Sometimes it's a physical limitation from an injury or whatever, and it's about rehab. But fundamentally, it all comes down to the psychology, the thinking that goes on inside the player's head about whether or not they can do it. And the psychology around slumps is often triggered. They're often triggered by intense circumstances. A close game where they lose, or sports are one of the prime places to find superstitious behaviors, and it's all that mental game. And so really just keying in on what you believe is possible, and letting that possibility happen. Um, the story of Dumbo. You can go to Dumbo. He has his quote unquote magic feather, and he can fly as long as he has his magic feather. And then later in the movie, he loses his magic feather, and so he doesn't believe he can fly. And he's informed that the feather was never magic to begin with. It was just something that he had to mentally latch on to believe that he could do it. And so then he ends up flying without the feather. Sure, that's a fantastical version, but it's the same as Lisa Nichols' swimming story. It's the same. I had a teammate when I was in high school. I was on the diving team, and this teammate of mine, she had the most beautiful back dive that you could imagine, and she'd go straight up, arc, come straight back down, and she was maybe 6-8 inches from the board when she would come back down and go in without a splash. She would consistently score in the nines with that dive, and it was one of those ones that she used to help to kind of guarantee her spot in the top ranks of each competition. It was her go-to. I can always hit this one really, really well. But then one day in practice, we were sitting there. I'm sitting there in the pool, and watching her up on the board, and she went up for her back dive. She did, just like normal, except this time when she came down, her toes just barely brushed the board, and she felt it. Didn't hurt. There was no injury, no concern. Like, it was just, they just boosh, just very, very lightly touched the board. And she came out, and she was shocked at how close to the board she was. She never knew that she was that close to the board. And all of a sudden, she was scared about hitting the board again. And after that dive, it was still a very well executed dive, even though her toes, lightly touched the board. But that experience changed the way she approached her dive, and she was never, to my knowledge, never again able to hit that dive the same, because of the mental block that happened of feeling too close to the board. And she consistently from that point forward shot way out into the water, lost her nice arc, and just turned into this distance game because she was too afraid to execute like before because of fear of hitting the board. So the question that I pose to you today is, if you, what could you do? What could you accomplish if you suddenly didn't believe what you believe now about what you're capable of? If you suddenly had a mind wipe of what you're not able to do. How many times do we approach things in life, from a basis of coming at things with what you can't do versus what you can, or what's possible, or what's impossible versus what's possible, and just think about that. Open your mind to the possibility that you could simply choose to believe that you can do it, whatever it is, and then do it, and then prove yourself right that you can do it, and that you can do it well. That's what I'm doing with this whole show. For me personally, I never ever want to have a recording of my voice. I didn't want to do video either. I started out my podcast doing only audio, and I was really self-conscious about how I sounded. I would hear the sound of my voice on a recording and go, "Oh my gosh, do I really sound like that? Can it be that awful?" I would feel bad for anybody that has to listen to my voice if that's what I actually sound like. Like those are the actual thoughts that went through my head. And so when it came time um, to hear a coaching session from a coach mentor person that I'm impressed by, that I look up to, and he says, you have to produce content, you have to record, you have to publish. And I went, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I was afraid. I was self-conscious. I told myself I was coming from, I was coming to the table with, I can't do that. I've long looked up to people that had podcasts, that had YouTube channels, that made videos and published content like this. And I went, that's cool that they can do that, but I can't. And I tell myself that all the time. And eventually I got to the point where I had to decide, what's more uncomfortable, me actually publishing this content and, getting over my fear and my self-consciousness about how I sound or what I look like or any of that stuff, and share my message, because I truly care about people. I care about you and your ability to believe in yourself, to understand that you were made for something special. And as long as you are getting in your own way by believing that you're not capable or you can't do it, you are robbing the world of what you were made to do. And that's what I was doing to myself, is I was robbing the world of access to that which I was designed to share and bring to the world. And I still don't feel, I'm not like toot my own horn. I'm awesome. Listen to me. But I do know that there are people out there that on this journey of life, there are always going to be people that are farther ahead of me. And I would always focus on the fact that people were farther ahead of me. But at the same time, there's always people that are farther behind me on this journey. And it's my duty to invest in the people that are farther behind, while at the same time learning and being inspired by the people that are farther ahead. And that's the generational mindset in my mind. Is it's not about child, father, grandfather, mother, grandmother, whatever, those literal generations. It's about the generations of information and capability and that journey of life, that somebody is always farther ahead of us, but there's always somebody farther behind, and we owe it to them to share what we know and share what we've learned, share our experiences, share our thoughts, feelings, ideas, so that the people that are farther behind us in the journey of life can learn and benefit from our experience. And the cool thing about the journey of life that I'm talking about is not this one single path, and if somebody's farther ahead of you, they're farther ahead of you in everything. It's a multitude of paths. It looks more like an equalizer, where there's, if you're looking at an audio equalizer where the things bump up and like this, is I might be farther ahead in my life in a certain area than somebody else is, and they're in that same area, but they're farther ahead of me in a different area than I am, so I can learn from. So you can have a mutually beneficial scenario in which you're both investing in each other in areas that you each need to grow from an area of greater maturity. So there's joy there for me. I'm super excited that I finally decided to get out of my own way and get on a platform and start sharing what I know, because what I've learned is that I will definitely encounter people in my life that need to know what I know, that need to hear what I have to say, that need to experience my message. And the more I share that message, the better I am at sharing that message. And that means that the better I am at sharing the message, the more value people get from hearing it. So that's my journey. That's me being the product of my product. I want to help people take that next step of growth to become more available to the world that they are designed to serve in the way that they were designed to serve. And me practicing what I'm preaching is I'm doing just that. This audio or video, whichever format you're watching or listening to, is me doing that, is stepping up and stepping out so that I can learn more about myself, learn more about my my calling, that thing that I was made to do, so that I can get better at talking about it and better at delivering it and better at adding value to other people who I may or may not know who those people are. I may or may not ever get the opportunity to witness somebody getting value out of what I have to say, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't say it. So that's my story for the day. Watch what you believe. Open your mind to the possibilities that you can do better than you do, that you can do that thing that you don't think you can do, that you were made for something amazing, and you were made to serve people in that way. So are you doing it? Have a good day.